Alright, hello everybody. It's Brandon here from Fear of the Cryptid, and today I have another project. So what today's project is going to be is building a meditation space or a relaxation space. I have this room that's been used as a storage room by the previous owners, and then when we first moved in, held a lot of stuff. But what I'm going to do is convert this space, which is underneath the stairs, hence the weird shapes in this room. As you can see, the slant. We're going to make this into a space that I can use. I don't really have a lot of space in the house that's kind of mine. So I'm going to convert this as a little place that I can get away, maybe do some meditation or read or relax, whatever I want to do. But this room has been pretty beaten down over time. You can see the carpets have some stains and things from paint and other things that they've done in the past. They might have tried to make this into a small bathroom, as I took down some seashell borders around the outside, and the outlets are a little bit higher on the walls here. There was racking up here on this top section, and I'll show a picture here so you can see that. But I've taken that down, and I didn't want to inflict you all with pain as I removed all these rackings and spackled all the holes. So that is all done. So I'm to the stage now where I've gone ahead and tried to clean the carpet as best I could and sanitize it. It's been steam cleaned and washed, so hopefully it'll be as clean as it can be. I was thinking of ripping it up initially, but I'm pretty sure it's just all glued down, and that would make a huge mess and nightmare to try to get that all flat. So I'll leave it as is, and I'm going to end up putting over a rug on this later that's cut to size. So I'll just give you a look at the room here. A lot of angles. We got this point over here. We have some space now where I took out the racking. And then underneath the stairs, you can see that slant where it goes right down to the floor. But for what I'm going to use this for, it's plenty, and it'll just give me a nice little room to get in. So if you have a space in your house that's random like this, or maybe a place that you don't have your own little getaway, we're going to kind of use this to show you how to make a space your own. Obviously do it for yourself, make it work for you, and then I'll kind of add some things in here too. And if you decide to make one space, you'll put in whatever you want. So this is just for some ideas and inspiration as you follow along with my journey of building this room. So now that I have everything ready to go, everything is as clean as it can really be. I'm going to go ahead and start painting as my first step. So I want this space to kind of be an outdoor space. I like being outdoors. It makes me feel more relaxed. So I'm going to go and start with a green paint, and I'm going to paint the room, and I'll probably end up painting the ceiling as well, but we'll see once I get there. That'll be my starting point. I have some other ideas of things I want to do kind of on top of the paint after, but we'll start there, and I'll let you know as we go along how it's starting to look. I went ahead and I started putting down my drop cloth and some painter's tape. I'm going to start with this section of the wall. So that is all taped up, ready for some paint. I did remove the plate around this outlet. This outlet too has been kind of funky for me. Like when I try to plug something in, it doesn't do anything, it just sticks and like won't go in all the way. So it's pretty old. I will end up replacing this as well sometime during this process. But for now, I took that plate off so I can get the paint to be as close as possible. But we are going to go ahead and start painting. I just got some regular type of paint. This is, let's see here, Pittsburgh Ultra. This is just for semi-gloss coverage or indoor coverage. Nothing too crazy. It was on sale for like 25 bucks. Since I'm going to be putting stuff over a lot of this paint too, I wasn't too concerned about how high quality the paint is. But this is what I have, and I picked out this green color, kind of a forest type of green, and we'll start with that on this wall, and I'll let you know once I get this one started, and we'll return. So I'm just going to use a paint roller. I got a couple ends here, and some paint brushes for the edging, so nothing too crazy here. And for that paint, I looked at the name of it. It's called Clover Leaf. So if you're wondering what color I'm using, that's what it is, Clover Leaf. So here is the first paint check-in. So you can see the color that we're using is that Clover Green. It's actually working pretty nicely. I must say that even just starting with the first coat of paint is really kind of giving some life to this room, because otherwise it was pretty beat down and scratched up and so on. So you can kind of see the difference from what it was to what it is now. Um, Even though it was kind of lighter, brighter before, the green actually stands out a lot more. But we'll keep painting, and I had the help from my 5-year-old for most of the bottom here. So we'll need a second coat eventually. As you can see, some of the markings still through, and to even it out a little bit. But right now it's looking pretty good. First big paint check in, we got this wall, this section that we had taped off, all painted. So we're going to kind of move on to the next section, but overall it went on pretty good. I was able to do all this with the roller. I'll probably need to get to a paintbrush or use a paintbrush here in this small area where we kind of get this triangle going because the roller won't fit in there. But overall it went on pretty easy. It is a little thin though because it's just the first coat, so you'll see there's some unevenness and imperfections still showing from underneath, but overall pretty good start. I do like the feeling that it's almost more foresty already, so we'll keep working at it. I don't think it'll be too dark because I do have some plans for some lights and stuff in here too, so overall I think it'll be a nice space, but I'll continue on. The first coat has dried. I'm going to do a second coat right away before I move all of my plastic and have to retape things. But you can see definitely, spottiness just because it's one first light coat, but I'll even it out now with a second coat and then we can take a look. Just another check in here. I got a second coat of paint on, so it's starting to cover it a little bit nicer, so that's drying. I also started on the ceiling, so I'm going to make the whole room, like I said, this clover green. So that's where I am right now, and as that's drying, I'll probably move on to the next section, this bigger section of the wall that's kind of has the angle here. So that is my plan next. All right, here's another check-in. So I put a second coat of paint on here. It looks pretty good. Up on the top, I started doing a coat, but you can see it's pretty thin still because that's just the first coat of paint. And then I started on this wall and got the first coat of paint on there, but you can see it's pretty patchy too. So I'm gonna go ahead and continue on this and some more on the ceiling. Checking in here again. So I have most of the ceiling covered up. Have a second coat onto this wall, and then I started working on that side wall back there, and then with a little leftover paint in my tray, started doing this slant wall. So I'm gonna just continue on this slanted wall down to the end, and then this side over here too. Once that's done, I just gotta finish up around the door here and then just do some edging touch-ups, and then anywhere that needs like a second coat. So that is my next steps and plan here. I went ahead and finished getting this painted, at least with the first coat, and down into the end there. It's kind of dark around the corner here, but that all has one coat. And then I got this coated as well. I'll just have to do some edging, and then once the edges are done, I'll do a second coat on the spotty spots there just to kind of finish that up as my kids were helping me paint again. So we'll finish that, and then it should be on to the next step. So getting close. So I'm going to go ahead and start painting the edges now that are missed with a paintbrush because I couldn't get to them with the roller. So I have some here and over here kind of in the area. It's a little bit darker right now, but you can see up there I have some touch-ups to do. And that's because I just took on the light. I have it hanging here for a second. And I'll also paint where that light fixture is. So those are my next steps. While I'm waiting for some paint to dry, I'm going to do some of the electrical work here. So make sure, of course, you hire an electrician if you're doing any sort of electrical work. But I have these old outlets here, one there, and one over here. And I also have this older light switch. So to make it more of the color theme, I'm gonna swap these out with some new brown ones. And I have just some Eaton here outlets for the two, and then I have a brown switch as well. So that is what I will do next. Okay, so I got my outlets replaced. So now I have some nice brown outlets and outlet covers here and here. And then I have my new light switch put in too. My plan is to just kind of finish painting a second coat on the spots that are still lacking. And then after that, we'll kind of go into what I want to do next with the walls. So I'm not super concerned if they're not fully solid, I guess I'll say. But I'll do my best to kind of get it coated with the paint I have left, and then I'll kind of show you what I have planned next. So just an update, I went ahead and did my second coat of paint on the spots that were still pretty streaky. Overall, it looks pretty good now. So what I'm going to do next is actually put on some of these peel and stick adhesive backgrounds. So I picked a couple that were some nice forest scenes, and I'm going to put those up on the wall and try my best to see how those look. You might ask then, why did you paint the walls if you're just going to cover it up? Well, one, the walls are in pretty rough shape, so that's why I needed a lot of spackling and kind of getting things evened out, so the paint really helps kind of put it back into a shape where I could do something like the peel and stick. And then also, I don't know if I'll do this on the whole room, so I did want something still kind of a forest green um, for the spots that aren't going to have the peel and stick, but we'll kind of see how it turns out. So I'm kind of curious on how these will be, but I'm going to open it up and then start putting them up. So my plan is to kind of do it on this main wall here, and then do the second one kind of where this is wrapping on this corner. We'll kind of go around there and see how far we can get that to go. So hopefully they go on okay, and I'll kind of show the progress as I open these up. They are in strips, so they kind of go through the different sections. So I think it's like 5 or 6 stripes of doing this, so you just kind of have to match those up. These two are a little bit different heights, so I will have to kind of figure out exactly what parts I'm going to cut off because they're a little bit taller than the ceiling. And just to make sure, I'm trying to make it so the pictures, even though they're different styles of backgrounds, so the pictures kind of line up so it looks like one whole scene instead of like two independent chunks of forest. So we'll see how that looks, but I'll do some finagling there and some cutting as we go just to try to get these two to line up as best as possible. So I'll show you that as we get going. All right, so I unrolled that first roll. So this is what our kind of background mural is going to look like. This is just first sheet out of 6. So there's 6 here that are kind of laid on top of each other right now. But each of these strips have trees and some brush. And there are some larger trees on some of the other sections. But this is the first part that we're going to use and put on this wall here. So this is kind of our before shot. And then I'll take some progress photos along the way as we put these up. So for the most part, it's just you peel off the backing, you stick it on, and then you kind of work out any air bubbles along the way. So we'll see how this one goes. This first set is pretty thick, which is kind of nice. The second one I think is going to be a thinner, more sticker-like background, but we'll see the difference between the two. But this is almost like a vinyl, so it's pretty resilient to a lot of, crinkling and any kind of dents that might happen. But it'll be kind of interesting to see how this works out. I will have to kind of, like I said, cut it. I do have a little heater down there on the wall I'll have to cut around, and then just kind of cut around the top. These panels do overlap a little bit, it says, so I'll just have to make sure as I do this I actually line up the picture correctly too. I have the first part of the mural up here, so it's looking pretty good so far. It did take a little finagling to get it in the right spot. So just because rooms aren't always, perfect 90-degree angles here, I had to kind of just make it look as best as I could on the top and the corner, so it kind of aligned with the corner of the wall here. And then I did have to cut around my vent, and then I cut it down at the molding. So so far so good. We'll let it go for a day. You're supposed to let it sit for a day and then come back, and as you put it up, it says to rub it with a towel to work out all the air bubbles. So I will do that some more. So there are, air bubbles that pop up every once in a while, so you just kind of have to push them to the side. So hopefully it stays up. But before I do any additional rows here or columns, I just want to make sure this one stays up and doesn't just fall down overnight. So it was pretty good. The one thing it says is when you're kind of hanging it, to do it in 6-inch sections. So you kind of pull the backing off the back about 6 inches and put it on. I found that I had to do more because the backing was actually too heavy. So once you're holding it up there, that backing and everything would just kind of pull it off the wall. So I pulled it about probably 1.5 feet at a time, if not a little bit more, and was able to get it to stick then, so it had more adhesion and the backing caused less problems. So overall, it went up. It looks kind of neat. So we'll see how it looks tomorrow. I came back the next day and it's still hanging, which is great. I was worried that it might peel off, but it actually stayed good, and all the corners look good too. So it says just to rub it down with the towel again, just to make sure you get out all the air bubbles, but overall it looks good. So I'm going to start on the next section. Hopefully it should be a little bit easier. I still have the outlet to kind of work around there, so I don't know if I'll go over or under it with that piece of mural background there, but we'll figure that out. But then after that, it should just be straight pieces, which would be great. So they do overlap a little bit, so we'll see how that works. But that is my next step. Update number 2, this is the second piece of the mural. It does overlap with the first piece just a little bit, probably like a 1/2 inch or so, but ran into some issues with it. So even though the first one held up fine, once you kind of overlap the other one, it ends up putting too much weight on it, and then it slowly started to peel off both. So in order to get them to actually stay, I did have to buy some of this super strength adhesive spray. I've used this before. I didn't want to use it if I didn't have to, but it is pretty sticky stuff, and it does kind of make a cloud as you spray it, so you have to just do it in little bits and make sure you have a mask or something like that on. But I did spritz a little bit of it on the wall, and it made this thing just stick really, really well. So I think I'll just be doing that going forward, since if you kind of hook them together, it seems like the weight is too much to keep it up on the wall. So looking good though. I got the first 2 on there. It says there are 6 pieces, so I'm expecting it to kind of go around that corner and then probably to the back corner, if not a little bit more. So we'll see where that goes. Here's an update on the next one. So that is another piece up. That one was easiest just because we didn't have anything to cut besides the bottom. So next up will be the corner. So that will be a little more interesting, but we'll go from there and see how that one looks. Just an update, I got the next layer on here. So this was kind of interesting being right in the corner, but overall didn't turn out too bad. There's always some air bubbles, but for the most part, I got it pretty flat, which is cool. And then the next stripe that we'll put up will be right on this edge, which should hopefully give it kind of a cool effect, like this big tree kind of sticking out, but we'll see how it goes. But that'll be the next one. Here's the update. I have the tree right on the corner, which is pretty cool because it makes it kind of stick out like a tree sticking out into the house here. We have one more piece of this mural left, and that's going to go in that corner. So we'll try that next, and have to cut it a little bit because of the slanted ceiling, but we'll give it a try. We got the last section of the first mural up. So you can see that tree kind of wraps around and goes just around that corner there. So I did have to make some cuts to make it fit in the ceiling since it drops down a little bit there. But overall, it looks pretty cool. We got the big tree right on the corner, and you can kind of see the different angles that it sticks out there a little bit and then goes on inside. So next I have another mural. This is kind of the part that's underneath the stairs, so pretty sharp cut off here with the triangle but I'll put a second backdrop kind of connecting to this tree and run that down into the corner. I got up 3 more panels here. So the second mural isn't really supposed to be, connected to the first one. They are separate murals, but I tried to make it look as best as I could. So I kind of cut it where this tree is, right in the corner. So it looks pretty decent for what it is. And then we have the 3 panels that kind of come down here to this point. And then I'm just gonna finish off the ones in the very corner. So it's looking pretty good overall. So pretty neat. Next up here, since we have the mural put up, is to do the one on the ceiling. So we're going to start trying to do this one. I have the light unhooked so we can work around that. And I'm going to try to put up a sky type of mural here. So we'll see how that goes. I went ahead and I got the ceiling up and it looks pretty cool. It's got the stars and the clouds. Kind of ties in the room a little bit when you're laying down or relaxing here. I did put in the base plate for a new light. The light that I picked up was off of Amazon. It's this Govee square ceiling light. So I got the base tacked up there, but now I'm going to cut the power and put up that light. I got the light up. It is, like I said, the Govee smart light, so you can use your app and set how you want this light to look. So it can change between different modes. You can set it for like a forest or a sunrise or a thunderstorm, and the colors will change based off of what you select. There's also a custom setting, so you can choose how you want your lights, if you want them to move a certain way. And this is kind of neat because once I get my whole room set up the way I want with some other things in here, I can kind of use this as a mood light for whatever I want to do. And then you can kind of set that on your app to be your different defaults. So if you come in here and maybe want to, meditate, you can have a setting for that. You can do one for like if you wanted to pretend it's raining or anything like that and select those. So it's pretty neat, and it'll be fun to play around with. I'm going to go ahead and start working on the floor. So I'm going to cover up this old carpet. It had a lot of stains from previous owners and such. So I'm going to replace it with a rug. It's not a regular carpet, but I got this rug to kind of be the same size as my room. There'll be a little portion that I'll probably have to cut and make work, but I'm going to try to make this cover as much of the room as possible. And what it kind of is, if you can see it, is okay here. It's like a green and dark green and light green, kind of forest looking, grass looking flooring. So you'll be able to see it better once I get it out, but my plan is to kind of put that out and cut it to the shape of this room, which will be a little interesting with all the corners and points here. But then we'll have a nice soft kind of shag grass floor. I got the rug cut to the shape of the room. It looks pretty good. And it's got to the different points here, so that corner and then around all the way underneath the stairs. But it's really cool looking. It's got some different tones of greens and whites, and kind of feels like a forest floor. And you can see it's kind of shaggy and fluffy. So overall, looks pretty cool. I'll probably get a roll of double-sided carpet tape just to kind of tack it down where I want to. But overall, it's given it that nice forest feel and kind of relaxing where you can lay down and rest. All right, next I'm gonna add some fake ivy I bought on Amazon. I got a whole bunch of strands for not much money at all. And I bought some tiny clear command hook adhesive strips. So I'm going to add those to the top of the mural and then kind of drape this ivy around. So we'll take a look in a minute on how that looks. I hung up the ivy around the room. I changed the lighting in here just so it's a little bit easier for you to see it instead of the light kind of glaring at you. But I hung some ivy to kind of blend in the corners and around the ceiling too, kind of where the murals meet each other or meet the painted walls. But I hung that up to kind of give it a more realistic look. Hung up some through here, kind of underneath. So it kind of runs along the top, and then some strands down. I'll back up here too around the painted wall. You can kind of see all of that. So overall, it looks pretty neat. I think it adds a little bit to the room. So now that I got this stuff in, I'm gonna go ahead and start bringing in some of my like shelves and personal effects and start kind of decorating the room. Before I start moving everything into my room, I decided I'm going to try to put a mural on the door as well. So it's a mural of a door. So I thought it might just give a little more appeal to the space. I'm going to wash the door and then dry it before I try to apply it. Now, the decal is a little bit smaller than the door size, but it is what it is. That's what I could find. So this one here is, like I said, a door. So it'll look kind of like that. And I also bought a new doorknob as well. And this one is kind of like a antique looking doorknob that locks. So that way when I'm in here, I can lock myself in, keep others out while I'm in this space and meditating or whatever it is I like to do. So I'm going to give that a try and I'll let you know once I get the mural up, kind of how it's going to look. Okay, I tacked it up with a couple of pieces of tape on the edges. So this way I can kind of see how it's going to look. It looks pretty good. I shuffled it around a little bit to try to center it a little bit better. But overall, it looks pretty good. And I will replace the doorknob once I get this on. And then I can go ahead and kind of cut the hole where the doorknob will be and put that on as well. But it's looking pretty neat. Well, I got the mural installed on the door. It looks really nice. I got the new doorknob on as well. So everything looks pretty good. Add some more character to the space, and I can start bringing in some more of my items into this room. All right, are we ready to see? I can zoom out here and we'll take a look at our room and all the stuff I added. So we have our forest mural that wraps around. We have the ivy that goes around the top and then hangs down. We have our sky with the new light, which is dim so we can see it a little bit. We have our new door mural, our fuzzy green grass carpet, and then some of the things I added to this room. I have this water wall, which is really cool. I had some gift cards from Amazon and used it towards this, so it looks pretty neat. Makes the water sounds while we're in here. I have some medallion pillows that I bought from Earthbound Trading Company, which are green and gold. I also got some other stuff in here too, some salt lamps, the round one and the tall one, and then my wizard, which you can touch on the little ball there so it lights up. And also have a blanket in here, some other shelves down at the bottom, and stands for tarot cards and reading books. I also have this hub here. All the devices can plug into this, and then I can turn it off, and that'll turn off everything at one time. And then I have a little LED mushroom light that can turn on as well, and some other trinkets, a little cat jar, and some boxes. And then the shelf is kind of a tree looking one or branch looking one. And at the very top, I have a projector. And I'll show you this in a little bit too. That's also a Golby brand. So it works just like my light does, but this projects different things up onto the ceiling. So stars and other scenes. So we'll take a look at that. I think for the time being, I'll turn off my salt lamps and water wall as well, just so we have a nice dark room to test out the projector. Okay, so I turned the lights off and turned the projector on. You can customize this, I'll back it out a little bit here, with all sorts of different colors, patterns, um, brightnesses. So right now it's at the full brightness, but you can see some reds and blues and it goes around. I'll kind of jump through a couple different modes to show you. This one here is a star pattern. They move around. You can adjust how many stars show up by the brightness. You can make some different patterns too. There is different selections with the stars as well. You can see it just kind of twinkles around and moves around on the ceiling, which is pretty cool for an effect. They're green just because that's what the projectors are able to do, unless they're a super expensive one. But they're pretty cool. I'll show you another one here. This one is a cloud pattern. They move around, more whites and grays. That's pretty cool as it goes. And I'll show you another one I like. This one is more of a thunderstorm type of feel. It jumps around a little bit faster. It does change colors. I like this one a little less bright, so it more looks like it's a lightning in the clouds and so on. But you can do that with the brightness levels and the intensity and illumination. So a lot of different options you can use. So I thought the projector was a cool thing to add to this room to project onto my sky mural. You can use it for whatever vibe you want to have in here. Now I do have some cord management to do around here just to clean this up, but I have something around the corner that I'd like to show you too. I'll take these out and bring them out into the light. All right, so here are the things that I had kind of behind the corner. They're pretty neat things linked together here, and I wanted to add something to my room, which I'll show you in a second. But what I have over here, this is just a sound box. I'll turn this on, and you can flip through different sounds. This is like wind, crackling fire, clock or metronome type of sound, trains, all sorts of stuff. Babbling brook, heartbeat, shushing sound, lullaby. I like this one. This is crickets, kind of outdoor sound. But this was the one I liked the most because I like thunderstorms, and that's what this one is here. So I'll stop that for now. But what's kind of neat is I have this, which is called a Storm 2.0 box, or Perfect Storm 2.0. I got this on sale after Halloween was over. So this is what they kind of use to get the effects on people's houses of flashing like lightning, to make it more scary. I thought, hey, for I think it was $40 at the time. I'm like, that's pretty cool that I can get in my room. What it has here on the front is just kind of a sensitivity knob, but it's got a microphone, so it'll pick up um, the outside sounds. So in this instance, it's going to pick up my sound box over here. But then in the back, you just run a light. So this is a halogen light. It's only a 250 watt. I tried to keep it lower, so I had a 600, and which was way too hot for in here. So I just got this 250. It's important to get halogen if you want to try this, because getting an LED light, it just goes on and off. It doesn't kind of flicker like you would get for a lightning effect. So this little trio here will give it a storm effect with lightning, which I'll show you, which is pretty cool for how cheap it was. I think this was only, on Amazon, like 20 some bucks. This was on sale for 40, and I think this light was like 17. So for making an effect like that, it's pretty cool. I just got a wooden box to kind of store them in for when I'm doing this. I'll show you the light. So this was the box that the light came in. So it's just a 250 watt halogen work light. I think I got this one at Lowe's. And then this was the Perfect Storm 2.0 box, which is good for the Halloween decorations. The last thing I did with this little setup is I did have another cage from that other work light that I bought. When I first tested it, it was very bright, so I wanted it to kind of be a little more duller of a color. So I took the cage off the other one, and I just wrapped it in some fireproof blue tape, and I just got that off of Amazon too. That'll kind of muffle how bright the light is. So I'm just going to set this over the top of it when I run it. It doesn't get hot, So that was the main thing. If you're working with these lights, just test that it doesn't get too warm. You don't want to cause a fire or nothing like that. But I am going to get this kind of all set up and then turn off the lights and show you the lightning effect. All right, so I got the lights off. You can see when the lightning goes off, kind of lights up the room, which is pretty cool. So I can just kind of chill in here and then get some different effects of lightning. Um, then you can do this with the projector too on top and kind of have the clouds if you want, but I like it just dark and then you hear the thunder and then you get to see the lightning, but you can kind of adjust the brightness or whatever you want to do too by how much you muffle the light. So, but it's pretty cool. I like the effect and I enjoy hanging out in here now. Yeah, so that perfect storm box is pretty neat. Like I said, it has that microphone in the front of it, so it does pick up the sounds of that sound box. So when it hears that thunderclap from the sound box, that's when it'll trigger the light. So the light is reactive to the sound that it's hearing. So it's not just randomly firing, it'll fire right at the time that the lightning and thunder sound. So overall, I hope you liked all the things I did in here. Obviously, this was a closet to begin with, and now it's pretty neat that it's transformed into a space, into something I can use. It's going to be fun and nice, and I can get away and relax and read. So, hopefully, you found this pretty interesting. Obviously, this isn't something you'll replicate one for one, but it'll give you kind of an idea of different things you can do in your spaces, or maybe give you some inspiration if you have a room or a space like this. So overall, I hope you enjoyed it. Please like, follow, and subscribe, and check out some of my other builds. Thanks.